Arrival of the alien companion. In the quiet suburb of Elmwood, James Carter sat alone in his living room, his gaze fixed on the night sky. The recent alien alliance with Earth had been a monumental event, changing society in ways humans could never have imagined. 5 years had passed since the first encounter, but seeing alien ships skimming the sky still left James awestruck. He was nearing his 50s, a man worn by life's ups and downs, and yet the mystery of these intergalactic visitors filled him with wonder. The doorbell's ring echoed through his house, pulling him out of his thoughts. This would be the first time he would meet an alien face to face, and he wasn't sure he was ready. He opened the door, and there stood his new housekeeper, an alien named Zara, assigned to him by the Intercultural Exchange Service. Her appearance took his breath away. She was tall and slender, her skin a soft lavender hue that shimmered under the porch light, almost as if it held galaxies within it. Her eyes were large, deep pools of silver and blue that seemed to shift with every glance. Dark, iridescent hair cascaded down her back, framing her elegant face in waves. There was an otherworldly grace to her that felt like a whisper from another dimension. "Greetings, James Carter," she said in a voice soft yet melodic. "I am Zara, sent here to assist you as per our cultural exchange arrangement." James, caught off guard by her charm and the surreal nature of the moment, managed to nod and step back, allowing her inside. "Yes, of course. Welcome, Zara. It's nice to meet you." As Zara moved past him, her presence seemed to fill the space around them, and James caught a faint scent, something floral, like a mix of jasmine and lavender. It was unlike anything he had ever encountered, stirring a mixture of intrigue and nervousness. Zara's curiosity was immediately apparent. Her wide eyes scanned every corner of the room, her delicate fingers grazing over surfaces with gentle wonder. The house was modest, with simple decorations and framed family photos scattered across the walls. But to Zara, it seemed to hold secrets, as though she was studying ancient artifacts from an alien world. She stopped in front of a houseplant and ran her fingers along its leaves, her face a mixture of curiosity and reverence. "These green organisms, they are life forms, yes?" she asked, tilting her head as if listening to something only she could hear. "Yet, they are confined to such small spaces. Do they not wish for freedom?" James chuckled, both amused and somewhat puzzled. "They're just houseplants, Sarah. They don't really think or feel like we do. They're here for decoration, mostly, and they help clean the air a bit." Zara gave a small nod, though her face showed clear doubt. "Perhaps they are merely quiet, waiting to reveal themselves." She straightened up, her eyes returning to James. "I apologize. I find your home very intriguing." They continued through the house, James showing her each room, while Zara's curiosity turned the mundane into something almost mystical. She marveled at the microwave, gasped at the whirring of the ceiling fan, and asked endless questions about each of the appliances. When they reached the guest room, she peered in, inspecting the bed and dresser with a look of mild confusion. "This will be your room," James said, feeling strangely self-conscious about the size and simplicity of the space. Zara's gaze swept over the small room, her face unreadable. "It is very enclosed. Do humans sleep in such small, isolated spaces?" "Yes," James replied, smiling despite himself. "We value privacy here. Bedrooms are personal spaces where people can relax alone." Zara's eyes widened slightly. Privacy, a unique concept. "On my planet, living quarters are shared among family and friends. There is no concept of isolation. It would be strange to separate ourselves in this way." She paused, her expression softening. "Thank you for explaining, James Carter." "Just James is fine," he said, feeling a warmth at her genuine appreciation. There was something about her open curiosity and kindness that made him feel like he was teaching a child, albeit a very intelligent, alien child. Their days quickly settled into a rhythm. Zara adapted to household chores with an enthusiasm that James found both endearing and baffling. She approached tasks like laundry and vacuuming with a mixture of awe and meticulousness, sometimes becoming so engrossed in her work that she forgot the original purpose. Every action seemed like an experiment to her, each step a small discovery. The kitchen, however, seemed to capture her attention the most. One evening, as James prepared a simple pasta dinner, Zara watched him from the corner of the kitchen, her lavender skin brightening with an iridescent glow as the smell of cooking filled the room. "James, why do humans change the state of their sustenance with heat?" she asked, watching the pot of boiling water with fascination. James chuckled, stirring the pasta. "It's called cooking. We do it to make food taste better, and sometimes it makes it easier to digest." Digest? Yes, I read about this process. On my planet, we absorb nutrients directly through our skin. We do not have, what do you call it, mouths for eating. She gestured to her own mouth, small and delicate, seemingly unused to any other function beyond communication. James nearly dropped the spoon in surprise. "Wait, you don't eat at all, but you have a mouth." Zara laughed, a musical sound that echoed warmly in the kitchen. "Our mouths are for language, for singing and speaking, and certain forms of closeness," she said, her eyes glinting with a hint of mischief. "We find your species need to consume food through such an orifice quite fascinating." James's cheeks flushed as he looked away, focusing hard on the pasta. The innocent charm of her words, combined with her unintentional allure, stirred something he hadn't felt in years. He quickly served the food, hoping the scent of basil and garlic would shift the conversation away from alien anatomy. The days passed, each bringing new discoveries. Zara's fascination extended beyond the house. She loved Earth's nature, spending hours observing the trees, listening to the birds, and watching clouds drift across the sky. James found himself drawn into her wonder, seeing his own world with fresh eyes. The way Sarah experienced life, with boundless curiosity and open admiration, began to rekindle a spark within him. It was as though she saw beauty in the simplest of things that he had long taken for granted. Then, one afternoon, as James worked on his laptop, Zara entered the room with a hesitant expression. "James, I've observed that you regularly enter the small room with the shower and spend time under the water. I wish to understand this process. What purpose does it serve?" James looked up, momentarily thrown by her question. "You mean showering?" "It's how humans clean themselves. Water and soap help wash away dirt and sweat." She tilted her head thoughtfully. "On my planet, we cleanse communally, and we do not use soap or privacy. It seems like an isolated ritual here." "Well, we have a sense of modesty. Privacy is important, especially when bathing," he explained, his face growing warm under her intense gaze. Zara seemed to ponder this for a moment. "I see. Your concept of modesty is quite complex. I suppose there are many things I still have yet to learn about humans." As she left, James felt a strange combination of relief and anticipation. It was clear that life with Zara was going to be filled with moments like this, moments that were both amusing and unexpectedly intimate. The cultural divide. A few weeks had passed since Zara had entered James's life, and every day felt like an adventure wrapped in layers of mystery. Her presence was challenging yet oddly comforting, and James found himself drawn to her in ways he hadn't expected. Each day revealed new layers of her personality and culture, nuances that felt both captivating and occasionally overwhelming. One crisp autumn morning, James sat at the kitchen table with a steaming mug of coffee, savoring the quiet. Zara entered the kitchen, her lavender skin now subtly shimmering with a pink hue that deepened in the morning light. Her movements, always graceful, seemed to blend with the air around her, as though she were a part of a different rhythm than Earth's own. "Good morning, James," she greeted, her voice lilting with a hint of curiosity. She looked at the mug in his hand. "I have observed that you consume this dark liquid each morning. May I ask its purpose?" James laughed, taking another sip. "It's coffee. It helps wake us up and gives us energy. You could say it's an Earth morning ritual." Zara's eyes sparkled, How intriguing. We have no such need for stimulants. Our energy comes from the harmonic fields of our planet. She reached out her hand, as though to understand the drink by proximity. May I? James nodded, offering the cup to her. She held it carefully, bringing it close to her face. The aroma seemed to catch her off guard, and her face wrinkled in curiosity. It's bitter, she noted, handing it back. Humans endure this flavor daily for its effect. Fascinating. On my world, pleasure and practicality rarely overlap. She studied him thoughtfully. You seem especially attached to rituals. Does this help you feel at ease? James hesitated, sensing her genuine curiosity. Rituals like coffee, or even the way we structure our day, give us a sense of control. Life is unpredictable, but these small habits can keep us grounded. Zara considered this, her expression turning serious. On my world, predictability is abundant. Our connection to the harmonic fields means that change is sensed long before it occurs. But I can see how you'd value rituals. There's something beautiful in the way humans face the unknown. Her words lingered with James. He was reminded again of how different their worlds were, how much of his daily life felt mundane to him, yet carried a profound meaning in her eyes. The day progressed as it always did, with Zara engaged in her chores and James finishing work on a project. Later that evening, as James was preparing dinner, he heard Zara's soft footsteps in the hall. She appeared at the doorway, an almost hesitant expression on her face. James, she began, her voice tinged with curiosity. I've read about your species' traditions of companionship and gatherings. I would very much like to understand more about this. James set down the spatula, intrigued. What would you like to know? Well, Zara replied, stepping closer, on my planet, relationships are formed through communal gatherings where individuals connect through shared harmonic vibrations. From what I understand, humans have dates. And these dates involve food, conversation, and the exchange of personal interests. James chuckled, caught off guard by the sudden shift in topic. Yes, that's more or less right. A date is a way to get to know someone and see if there's a deeper connection. But it's more about creating a comfortable atmosphere and sharing experiences together. Zara nodded, her gaze softening. Then I would like to propose an Earth-style companionship ritual. Perhaps tonight we can dine as companions. James blinked, surprised. For all her innocence, Zara's proposition seemed oddly formal, but he nodded, intrigued by her offer. I'd be honored. As dinner approached, Zara took on an air of formality, her curiosity tempered by a quiet determination to get the experience just right. She had even found a way to wrap herself in a soft, silken fabric she had observed in his wardrobe, which she called the garment of Earth's ceremonial bonding. As they sat at the table, James felt a strange sense of excitement. Zara's presence had transformed his home, and for the first time in a long while, he felt alive, like he was experiencing something genuinely new. He served a simple meal, pasta with fresh vegetables, and she looked at it as though it were a masterpiece of culinary art. Humans prepare food with such care, she observed, glancing down at the colorful plate. Does the presentation hold significance in this ritual? James chuckled. Sort of. When we share food, it's as much about showing care as it is about nourishment. It's one way we connect. With careful precision, Zara mimicked his actions, picking up the fork and attempting her first bite. Her face went through a series of expressions, from surprise to curiosity to something close to enjoyment. The texture, the flavors, this is truly unique. She gazed at him with wonder. To think such a small act could bring so much joy. They spoke about their lives as they ate, with Zara sharing fragments of her planet's ways. She described crystalline cities resonating with harmonic energy, where sound, light, and color blended seamlessly into a living melody that sustained all life. She told him of the vast open spaces that extended beyond their cities, places where they would sit for hours, communing with the cosmic vibrations that connected everything on her planet. James found himself entranced by her stories, unable to imagine a world so vastly different from his own. He shared his own experiences in return, talking about the way humans sought meaning in relationships, careers, and personal growth. In your world, she asked, her eyes searching his, how do you choose a companion for life? What guides this decision? He paused, thinking over her question. It's a mix of feelings and intuition. Sometimes, two people just connect. Other times, it's shared values, mutual respect, and the way they support each other through life's challenges. There's no formula, it's something people just feel. Zara's gaze lingered on him, her eyes reflecting a faint shimmer. Your ways are mysterious, yet they resonate with beauty. Dinner passed, and as they cleared the table, an unspoken warmth had settled between them. She followed him into the living room, where he turned on a gentle melody that filled the space with soft, inviting notes. Zara's expression softened as she absorbed the music, closing her eyes as though feeling it in her core. Music, it resonates so deeply, she murmured. It feels like harmony. Yes, he said, watching her. For us, music is a way to express emotions that words can't capture. It's something that connects us, like an invisible thread. Zara extended her hand toward him, a bold yet hesitant gesture. May I experience this connection in the earth way, to dance? His pulse quickened. He took her hand, guiding her gently as they moved to the soft rhythm of the music. She moved gracefully, as if each note informed her every step, her eyes never leaving his. Their movements slowed, her presence pulling him in like the tides drawn by the moon. For a brief moment, the boundaries between them felt blurred, as though the differences that defined their worlds dissolved in the simplicity of shared presence. The warmth of her hand in his, the shimmering color of her lavender skin in the dim light, all these details stirred emotions he couldn't quite name. As the song ended, they lingered, still holding hands. Silence filled the room, yet it was a silence brimming with understanding. That was unlike anything I've felt, Zara whispered. Thank you, James. Her words held a reverence that touched him deeply. And though he knew their journey together would be filled with challenges, cultural misunderstandings, questions without easy answers, he found himself ready to explore it all, guided by curiosity and the quiet hope of something extraordinary. In that moment, he realized he wasn't alone. He hadn't just found a housekeeper, but a companion, a teacher, and a mystery, all wrapped into one extraordinary being. They were just beginning a journey, and as he held her gaze, he knew it was one he would cherish for the rest of his life. Navigating boundaries. In the weeks that followed their shared dinner and dance, James and Zara settled into a rhythm that felt both familiar and novel. Each day brought a deeper understanding of their differences, yet also highlighted the surprising common ground they shared. Zara's curiosity was boundless, and James, though initially reluctant to answer some of her more probing questions, soon found himself engaging with her in ways he hadn't expected. One evening, James was working on his laptop in the living room when Zara entered quietly, her lavender skin reflecting a soft, silvery sheen under the lamp light. Her expression was thoughtful, almost hesitant, a rare sight for someone who usually faced the world with open curiosity. James, she began, folding her hands delicately in front of her. I've been researching human customs, and she paused, searching for the right words. There is something I wish to understand, but I am unsure how to ask. James set his laptop aside, intrigued. Of course, Zara, you can ask me anything. She took a seat across from him, her gaze intense. It's about your concept of personal boundaries, specifically the way humans guard their physical and emotional spaces. He nodded, sensing this was something she had been pondering for some time. Yes, boundaries are important to us. They give us a sense of comfort and safety, especially when it comes to privacy. Zara's eyes softened, the silvery undertones in her skin deepening as if reflecting her contemplative mood. On my world, we exist in constant connection with one another. Privacy, as you call it, is an unfamiliar concept to us. We share not only spaces, but also thoughts, emotions, even memories, through harmonic resonance. The idea was both fascinating and unsettling to James. "So, there's no need for privacy on your world?" "No," she replied, her voice gentle yet tinged with sadness. "We see privacy as a form of separation, something that distances individuals from the collective harmony. But here, I see that privacy is integral to your way of life, to your sense of self." James nodded, trying to wrap his mind around the differences. "For us, privacy helps us understand ourselves as individuals. It's a way to define who we are separate from others. It's not that we don't value connection," he added, choosing his words carefully, "but we also value independence and personal space." Zara looked down, her fingers tracing invisible patterns on the edge of the couch. "I have noticed that there are times when you seem withdrawn, as though you need to be alone. It puzzles me, but I wish to respect it." James felt a surge of warmth at her thoughtfulness. "Thank you, Zara. It means a lot that you're willing to understand that part of me." Her expression brightened, though her eyes held a glimmer of something deeper. "I am learning. Every day, I feel myself adapting to your customs. But there is one thing I struggle with." He leaned forward, curious. "What is it?" She hesitated, her gaze drifting to the window, where the evening sky was deepening into shades of indigo and violet. "I feel disconnected. Your world is so vibrant, filled with colors, scents, and sounds I could never have imagined. Yet I miss the harmony of my home, the resonance that binds us together. Here, I am alone in a way I have never known before." Her words struck a chord within James. He hadn't considered how isolating Earth might feel for someone from a society where connection was as essential as breathing. She was like an explorer on a foreign planet, far from her own people, and he was the only bridge she had to this new world. A thought occurred to him. "Maybe there's a way I can help you feel more at home." She looked at him, her expression hopeful. "How?" James rose and led her to his study, where he kept a small collection of musical instruments. He picked up a simple wooden flute and held it out to her. "This is a flute," he explained, demonstrating a few notes. "Music is a form of connection for us too. I thought maybe if we played music together, it might bring a little of that harmony back to you." Zara's face lit up with genuine delight. "Music, yes, I would like that very much." They spent the next hour in a tentative yet beautiful duet. James played a gentle melody on the flute, and to his surprise, Zara's voice joined in, effortlessly harmonizing with the notes. Her voice was ethereal, weaving through the melody like a silken thread, filling the room with a resonance that seemed to echo beyond the walls. It was as if she were channeling a part of her world into his, bridging the gap between them in a way words never could. When they finally stopped, both were silent, the air thick with an unspoken understanding. It was in these moments James realized that they truly connected, not through explanations or boundaries, but through shared experience. As the days passed, James noticed subtle changes in their interactions. Zara had begun to navigate their shared spaces with more awareness, gently knocking before entering a room or giving him space when he seemed lost in thought. In turn, James found himself more attuned to her needs, recognizing the moments when her curiosity was tinged with a longing for connection. One morning, as James was reading in his study, Zara entered with a tentative smile. "James, I have been practicing the concept of knocking, as you instructed," she said, her voice playful yet sincere. James grinned. "I appreciate it, Zara. You're learning fast." She tilted her head, her eyes alight with a spark of challenge. "There is another Earth concept I am curious about. You call it humor." James laughed, her earnestness endearing. "Yes, humor is a way for us to connect, to find joy in shared experiences. It's a bit like music, a language of its own." Her eyes sparkled with fascination. "Then perhaps you could teach me." And so James embarked on the task of explaining humor to someone with no concept of it. He told her simple jokes, demonstrated puns, and even shared funny moments from his own life. Though she didn't always understand, she watched him closely, her smile widening each time he laughed. It was clear that, Even if she didn't grasp the mechanics of humor, she loved the joy it brought him. But humor, he realized, was only part of what was drawing them closer. They were beginning to share something deeper, a bond that transcended their differences. Then came the evening that would redefine their connection. James had just finished cleaning up after dinner when Zara entered the kitchen, her expression unusually serious. "James," she began, her voice steady but soft, "I need to understand something. Human relationships, they evolve, don't they? They change from one form to another." James, caught off guard, nodded. "Yes, relationships can evolve. They can start as friendships and grow into something more." Zara took a step closer, her eyes searching his. "And what would it mean if I wished to deepen our connection?" The room fell silent, her question lingering in the air. James felt a warmth rise in his chest, accompanied by a sense of vulnerability he hadn't expected. He looked at her, this alien being who had become so much more than just a housekeeper or companion. Her presence had filled his life with a new kind of wonder, and he found himself wondering what it might be like to take that next step. "Zara," he began carefully, "for humans, deepening a relationship often means sharing more of ourselves. It's about trust, understanding, and a willingness to be vulnerable." She nodded, a gentle smile softening her expression. "I am willing to learn." The following weeks were filled with quiet moments and conversations that went beyond the surface. They spoke of their dreams, their fears, and the hopes they held for the future. They spent evenings under the stars, their silences as meaningful as their words. Each day brought them closer, their bond growing stronger, richer, with each shared experience. One evening, as they stood side by side on the porch, watching the stars, Zara looked at him, her eyes reflecting the starlight. "James," she said softly, "in my world, we call this feeling Syra, the resonance of souls that have found harmony." James felt his heart swell, understanding exactly what she meant. "We call it connection," he replied, his voice a whisper in the quiet night. "And I think I found it with you." In that moment, the boundaries between them dissolved. They stood together, two beings from different worlds, united by a bond that needed no words. As the night deepened, they remained side by side, silently acknowledging the journey they had embarked upon, a journey that was only beginning. Shared experiences and new horizons. James and Zara's lives had become a blend of the familiar and the strange, weaving together the threads of two cultures, two minds, and two hearts. Each day was a lesson in patience and discovery, and while they still stumbled over cultural differences, each misstep brought them closer, strengthening the bond that had begun to form between them. One chilly autumn morning, James decided to take Zara to the nearby forest. He thought that perhaps the natural beauty of Earth could offer her a glimpse of the harmony she missed from her home. They packed a small lunch, and James bundled up in his coat and scarf, while Zara, unaffected by the cold, observed his attire with mild amusement. "Is all of this necessary for warmth?" she asked, tugging at his scarf playfully. James laughed. "For humans, yes. We don't handle cold temperatures as well as some other species." She tilted her head, a soft smile on her lips. "Your planet requires so many adaptations. It's quite fascinating." Then a hint of sadness flickered across her face. "I sometimes wonder if I'll ever truly understand it all." James took her hand, offering a reassuring squeeze. "You don't have to understand everything. Just experiencing it is enough." Their journey into the forest was filled with wonder. The leaves had turned shades of amber, crimson, and gold, carpeting the ground in a fiery mosaic. Zara walked slowly, her lavender skin shimmering against the autumn backdrop. She marveled at the trees, gently touching the bark, and occasionally closing her eyes, as though listening to a hidden melody only she could hear. "James," she whispered at one point, her voice filled with awe, "there is life in everything here. It resonates like a gentle hum, almost like home." James felt a pang of warmth at her words. "Yes, forests have a way of connecting us to the world. I come here when I need to feel grounded or find clarity. Nature has its own way of healing." Zara looked at him, her eyes shining. I feel it too. It's as though each tree, each leaf, has its own story to tell. They found a clearing and sat on a fallen log, unwrapping their lunch as they settled into the quiet peace of the woods. As they ate, Zara's gaze drifted to the sky, her face thoughtful. On my planet, she began softly, we have no seasons. The weather is constant, warm and mild, because of the harmonic fields that regulate our environment. This change, this transformation of the landscape, it's beautiful. James nodded. Earth's seasons teach us about change and renewal. Each season brings its own challenges, but there's beauty in that. It reminds us that nothing is permanent, that life is always moving forward. Zara absorbed his words, her gaze never leaving the vibrant canopy above them. You see beauty even in endings. That's something I'm learning from you, James. As they continued their walk, James pointed out different plants and trees, explaining their names and uses. Zara listened intently, her natural curiosity making every leaf, every blade of grass, seem significant. At one point, she stopped, crouching to examine a small cluster of mushrooms growing at the base of a tree. These organisms, she murmured, are they part of the tree or are they independent? James crouched beside her. They're independent, but they form a symbiotic relationship with the tree. They exchange nutrients, helping each other survive. In a way, they're like companions. Zara's expression softened. Companions. Yes, that's a beautiful way to think of it. She looked up at him, her gaze intense. I sometimes feel that we are like this, you and I different, yet connected. Her words lingered between them, and James felt a warmth he couldn't quite describe. Their differences, rather than creating distance, seemed to bind them closer, forming a harmony all their own. As dusk approached, they made their way back to the house, the sky fading from blue to a deep, velvety purple. They arrived home tired but content, each carrying the quiet joy of the day in their hearts. After dinner, they settled in the living room, a comfortable silence wrapping around them as they reflected on the day. Zara, her eyes heavy with contentment, looked over at James. Thank you for today. I feel as though I've touched a part of your world that goes beyond words. James smiled, grateful for the connection they shared. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I think it's important for us to share these things, to understand each other in ways that don't always need explaining. She nodded, her expression thoughtful. There's something I wish to share with you as well, if you're willing. James's interest was piqued. Of course, anything. Zara rose, holding out her hand. I would like to show you a bonding ritual from my world. It's a way for us to connect deeply, to understand each other without words. It requires openness and trust. James felt a mix of excitement and trepidation, but took her hand, standing alongside her. I trust you, Zara. She led him to the center of the room, where they stood facing each other, her hands still warm in his. She closed her eyes, her face serene, and after a moment, James followed suit. He felt her presence, strong and steady, as she began to hum softly, a gentle, resonant melody that seemed to vibrate through his bones. As she continued, he felt an odd sensation, a warmth spreading from his chest outward. Images flickered in his mind, memories of his past, moments of joy, sorrow, and resilience, all blending together like a river flowing through him. And then he began to feel her presence even more vividly, a sensation of energy mingling with his own. It was unlike anything he had ever experienced. Through her hum, he sensed her own memories, visions of crystalline landscapes, cities shimmering with energy, beings moving in unison to a rhythm that pulsed through the air like a heartbeat. He could feel her longing, her love for her world, and the ache of leaving it behind. They stood there, bound by this invisible thread of shared memories and emotions, a bridge formed between two worlds. As the hum faded, he opened his eyes, finding her gaze already on him, her face illuminated by a softness that spoke of both vulnerability and strength. Zara, that was. He struggled to find the words, but she simply nodded, her eyes understanding. I wanted you to know a part of me, James. The part that misses home, but has found peace here with you." They stood in silence, the weight of the moment sinking into their bones. He reached for her hand, pulling her gently to the couch, where they sat, still processing the experience. "Zara," he began slowly, "I can't imagine what it's like to leave behind everything you know, but you've given me a glimpse of your world, and I feel honored." She leaned against him, a small, contented smile on her face. "We are more alike than I realized, James. Your world is different from mine, but the need for connection, for understanding, that's something we share." The night deepened, and they continued talking, each word an affirmation of the bond they had formed. They spoke of their dreams, their hopes, and the paths they had each walked to reach this moment. In the quiet of the evening, they found solace in each other's presence, a companionship that went beyond words. Eventually, Zara rose, her eyes bright with a gentle resolve. "There's one more thing I wish to experience," she said softly. James looked at her, curious. "What is it?" She hesitated, then smiled. "I've seen humans embrace, a gesture that seems to bring comfort and warmth. I would like to know what that feels like." James's heart skipped a beat, and without a word, he opened his arms. She stepped into them, her head resting against his shoulder, her body warm and light against his. They stood there, wrapped in each other's presence, the simple act of holding one another bridging the vast distance between their worlds. In that embrace, they found a peace neither had expected, a harmony that transcended their differences. It was a small moment, yet profound, a silent promise that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. As the first hints of dawn appeared on the horizon, they finally parted, their hearts full of a quiet understanding. They had shared a glimpse of each other's worlds, each taking a step closer toward a connection that felt both timeless and infinite. And as the day broke, they knew that this journey, strange and wonderful, was only beginning. Together, they would navigate the unknown, guided by trust, curiosity, and the shared hope of something beautiful. Bonds beyond words. As winter settled over the small town, James and Zara found their lives intertwining in ways that felt as natural as the changing seasons. Each day was filled with moments of discovery, laughter, and, occasionally, small missteps that taught them more about each other. The cold weather, which kept most people indoors, only served to deepen the bond between them, allowing them to explore not just their surroundings, but the uncharted territory of their connection. One evening, as snowflakes drifted gently outside, James sat by the fireplace, a mug of tea warming his hands. Zara, wrapped in a soft blanket that she'd come to enjoy, sat beside him, her lavender skin reflecting the firelight with a soft, otherworldly glow. Her curiosity about human life, rituals, and traditions never ceased, and tonight, it seemed she had a new question on her mind. "James," she began, breaking the comfortable silence, "I've noticed that during this season, humans tend to gather and celebrate. You call it the holidays, yes?" He nodded, smiling. "Yes. The holiday season is a time when we connect with family and friends, celebrate together, and reflect on the past year. It's about love, gratitude, and warmth." She tilted her head thoughtfully. "On my planet, we don't have specific times to gather. We are always together, connected. The idea of celebrating particular times of the year seems unique. It's a way for us to mark time," James explained, "and to remind ourselves of the things that matter most. Even if life gets busy, we always make time to be together for the holidays." She listened intently, her expression thoughtful. "And what about gifts? I've noticed humans exchanging objects with each other during these gatherings. What is the purpose?" "Gifts are a way to show appreciation," James said. "It doesn't have to be anything big or expensive. It's the thought behind the gift that counts. When you give someone something, you're saying, 'I see you, I care about you, and I want you to know that.'" A small smile played on Zara's lips. "That is beautiful, James. I would like to experience this, giving." Touched by her openness, James decided to help her find a way to join in the holiday spirit. Over the next few days, they made small preparations around the house, decorating it with lights and handmade ornaments. Zaira was mesmerized by the twinkling lights, her face glowing with childlike wonder as she hung delicate glass bulbs and tinsel on a small, freshly cut pine tree in the corner of the living room. On Christmas Eve, they exchanged small gifts. James gave Zaira a journal, leather-bound with a soft cover, so she could record her thoughts and memories. Her face lit up with gratitude, and she traced her fingers over the cover, treating it as though it was something precious. "This," she said softly, "is the first thing that has been given to me by another. On my world, we share everything communally, so there is no concept of individual possessions. But this is mine." James's heart swelled, feeling the weight of her words. "I wanted you to have something that's just yours, something to remember this time by." In return, Zaira handed him a small crystal, intricately carved and emitting a faint glow. "This is from my home," she said, her voice filled with emotion. "It's called a Celaya. It holds the energy of our world, a reminder of harmony. I wanted you to have it so that you can feel a part of my world, just as I am now a part of yours." James held the crystal reverently, touched by the significance of her gift. He placed it on the mantel, where it caught the light from the fire, casting delicate, shimmering patterns across the room. The holidays passed in a blur of quiet joy, each day bringing new experiences and shared memories. They spent their time talking, reading together, and venturing out on long walks through the snow-laden forest. Zaira was fascinated by the snow, marveling at the way it blanketed everything in silence and transformed the landscape into a world of shimmering white. One evening, after a day spent exploring a frozen lake nearby, they returned home, their faces flushed from the cold. As they warmed up by the fire, Zaira looked at James, a hint of seriousness in her expression. "There is something I've been wanting to ask," she began, her voice soft. "I've noticed how you speak of your past, of people you've known and loved. You seem to carry a heaviness with you." James looked away, surprised by the directness of her observation. "Yes," he admitted, "there are parts of my life that are hard to talk about. People I've lost, things I regret. I guess that's something humans carry with us. We don't always know how to let go." Zaira placed a gentle hand on his, her touch warm and steady. "On my planet, we have a ritual for healing. We call it the Karesha. It's a way to release emotions and memories that weigh us down, a way to find peace." James felt a spark of curiosity. "How does it work?" "It's a simple ritual," she explained, "but it requires trust. We find a quiet place, and each person takes a turn sharing something they wish to let go of. As they speak, they hold a small object that represents the memory. When they're ready, they release the object into flowing water, symbolizing the release of the burden." The idea resonated deeply with James. Would you be willing to do this with me?" Zaira nodded, her expression gentle. "I would be honored." They waited until the next day, when the sun was bright and the air clear. They walked down to a small creek that ran through the woods near James' house. The water was cold but flowing, a soft trickle over stones and roots. They each took a small, smooth stone, holding it in their hands as they prepared to begin. James went first, his voice steady but tinged with emotion. "I release the weight of regret," he murmured, "for things I should have said and done, for the moments I missed and the people I lost." He looked at Zaira, his eyes meeting hers, and she nodded, encouraging him to continue. With a deep breath, he placed the stone in the water, watching as it disappeared beneath the surface, carried away by the current. Zaira's turn came next. She held her stone with both hands, her gaze distant. "I release the feeling of separation," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "I release the longing for a home that is far away, for a family I may never see again. I release the fear of being alone in this world." Her voice wavered, and James reached out, his hand covering hers as she placed the stone in the water, letting it drift away. They stood in silence, watching the water carry their burdens downstream. The act felt both symbolic and real, a small gesture with profound meaning. When they finally returned to the house, a new sense of lightness filled the air between them, an understanding that went beyond words. The days turned into weeks, and winter began to soften into early spring. The snow melted, giving way to budding trees and green shoots peeking through the soil. The shift in seasons mirrored the shift within them, their bond deepening with each passing day. They shared more than just a home. They shared dreams, hopes, and the quiet contentment that came from simply being together. One warm afternoon, as they were planting herbs in the small garden outside, Zara looked up at him, a smile playing at her lips. "James," he said, do you think I'll ever truly belong here?" He knelt beside her, wiping his hands on his jeans. "I think you already do. You've become a part of this world, Zara, and a part of my life. Belonging isn't about where you come from, it's about where you choose to be." She placed a small basil plant into the soil, patting it down gently. "Then I choose to be here with you." They continued working, their hands brushing as they planted each herb. The air was filled with the scent of earth and the promise of new beginnings, a reminder of the seasons yet to come. Their journey together was still unfolding, a story without an ending, and in that moment, they both knew that they wouldn't want it any other way. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting golden light over their small garden, James and Zara sat side by side, watching the first stars appear in the evening sky. They had traveled far from where they started, two souls from different worlds, finding a place of belonging in each other. In the quiet of the twilight, their hands intertwined, they realized that home was not a place, but a feeling they had found together.